The evening had that quiet, mellow glow, like the whole city exhaled and finally chilled out for a minute. The red brick walls of Liberty Fort in Washington, D.C. caught the last bit of sunlight, going all golden and peaceful. Ayan Mehra, freelance journalist, half-burnt coffee in hand, was roaming around looking for a story. Any story, because the news cycle had been bone dry all week. He wasn't expecting anything except maybe a political protest or a street performer trying too hard for attention. But then the air changed. You know that weird silence before something bad hits? Yeah, that. The wind stilled. Ayan's gut tightened. And then, boom. The explosion ripped through the calm like the sky itself snapped open. Heat slammed into his chest. The ground trembled like a train roared right under it. Ayan hit the pavement hard, ears ringing, vision buzzing with white static. When he pushed up, dust rolled across the street like a pissed-off storm cloud. Cars had flipped. Windows rained down like glitter from hell. People were screaming, raw, terrified, choking on smoke. Ayan staggered forward, instincts kicking in. Hey! Anyone hear me? You good? His voice shook, but he kept moving. Journalists run toward the mess. That's the curse of the job. Through the haze he spotted her, a woman lying near a shattered bench, blood soaking through her shirt. She looked too young to be dying on a sidewalk. Ayan dropped to his knees beside her. Hey, stay with me, he whispered, voice cracking. Her fingers twitched, reaching for him. She tried speaking, but coughed instead. Then, with whatever strength she had left, she pulled him close enough for her breath to warm his ear. A single word came out. Broken. Barely shaped. But unmistakable. Rehan. And just like that, her hand went limp. Her eyes froze open, staring at a sky turning dark with smoke. Ayan swallowed hard. His pulse thudded in his ears, louder than the sirens starting to scream in the distance. He didn't know who Rehan was. But he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't walking away from this. Not again. And somewhere behind the chaos, a shadow moved, watching him. Waiting. Ayan couldn't shake it. That name, Rehan, kept looping in his head like a broken record that refused to shut up. Even hours after the blast at Liberty Fort, after the smoke cleared and the cops pushed everyone back behind their yellow tape, the sound of her cracked voice still clung to him. It felt personal now, like she'd handed him something heavy and walked off, leaving him to deal with it. At the precinct, the cops weren't buying any of it. Ayan tried explaining, trying to get them to log the name, run it through something, but the lead officer just shrugged like he'd heard one too many ghost stories. Look man, he said, chewing gum like it was a crime scene accessory, people say all kinds of wild stuff when they're going out. Could have been her cousin, her cat, her imaginary friend, I dunno. Don't overthink it. Overthink it. Yeah, right. Ayan walked out with a pit in his stomach and a fire in his chest. If they weren't gonna dig into it, he damn sure would. By morning he was back near the blast site, eyes burning from lack of sleep and too much cheap coffee. He started hunting for businesses with cameras pointed toward the street. A liquor store owner finally caved and let him skim through blurry footage. The moment before the explosion, Ayan caught a figure sprinting away, fast, desperate, like someone running from their own shadow. Yo, freeze that, Ayan muttered. But the resolution was trash. Just a hoodie, dark jeans, nothing helpful. Still, something about the posture made his brain itch. He spent the afternoon talking to witnesses. People still trembling, still jumpy, eyes darting at every passing car. One old man insisted he saw someone lurking around like bad news 10 minutes before the blast. A teen said she heard someone arguing on the phone. Nobody mentioned Rehan. Nobody recognized the girl who died. But everywhere Ayan went, he felt it, eyes on him. Like someone tailing him from across the street, always just out of focus. He spun around a couple times, but whoever it was knew how to disappear fast. By nightfall, with the city humming in that restless way it does after tragedy, Ayan realized something bone deep. Whoever whispered that name hadn't given him a clue. They'd given him a target. And someone out there didn't like that he was looking. Sleep didn't come for Ayan that night. Every time he shut his eyes, the blast from Liberty Fort twisted into another one, older, sharper, one he'd spent years trying to bury. He saw his kid brother, Samir, laughing that goofy laugh of his just minutes before the world blew apart in downtown Chicago. 1 second joy, the next, a fireball swallowing everything. Ion shot awake, chest tight, breath shaking like he'd sprinted miles. "Damn it," he muttered, rubbing the ache between his eyebrows. The city outside his apartment window buzzed low, sirens echoing faintly. Same soundtrack as always. Same ghosts. Maybe that's why the woman's dying whisper hit him so hard. He couldn't save his brother, but maybe, just maybe, he could save the truth this time. By late morning he was back on the streets, running on caffeine and spite. He retraced every corner near the blast, notebook filling with messy scribbles. He didn't expect the cops to like that, but he didn't expect her either. "Hey!" A sharp voice snapped from behind. "You the guy who keeps harassing witnesses like you're running the investigation yourself?" Ion turned. And there she was. Inspector Zoya Khan. She had that no-nonsense energy, the kind that made you straighten up before she even said a word. Dark tactical jacket, badge hanging at her hip, eyes sharp enough to slice through excuses. Ion lifted his hands. "Harassing? I call it caring. Something you should try sometime, might help your PR." Her brow arched. "Cute. You done playing Reporter Rambo? Because you're messing up my case." "Your case?" he shot back. "Lady," the cops didn't even blink at the victim's last words. Zoya stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Look, cowboy, this isn't a podcast mystery. People died. I'm trying to keep more from joining them. So stop freelancing before you get someone else hurt." For a moment their eyes locked. Tension thick enough to slice. Ion wasn't sure if he wanted to argue or something else. Something annoyingly distracting. She sighed, the edge melting just a little. "Just, don't get in my way." She walked off, talking into her radio, professional, controlled, untouchable. But Ion caught something in her tone. Something tight. Heavy. Like she was carrying her own ghosts too. And as he watched her disappear into the crime scene crowd, a cold thought crawled through him. If Zoya was this on edge already. The next morning, the sky over DC looked washed out, like someone forgot to turn the color back on. Ion hauled himself to the precinct with a mix of nerves and sheer stubbornness. Zoya had told him to stay out of her way, sure, but she hadn't actually banned him. Technicalities were a journalist's best friend. When he stepped inside, she was already waiting, arms crossed, expression reading, "You're a pain, but let's get this over with." "Walk with me," she muttered. "And don't act like you own the place." They headed into a cramped evidence room that smelled like old paper and burnt wires. Zoya tapped her tablet, pulling up the victim's phone logs. "The girl you saw," she said quietly. Her name was Layla Ortiz. 26. No priors. Worked part-time at a non-profit. Looks clean on paper. She turned the screen to him. But her calls tell a different story. Ion leaned closer, squinting. Layla's recent calls were to burner phones, encrypted apps, and people with names that definitely weren't their birth names. Who the hell are these folks? Ion breathed. Underground activist network, Zoya said. The kind that fights for stuff nobody talks about without wanting a target on their back. Layla wasn't just strolling through the fort for fun. She was connected to something heavy. Ion felt that click in his gut, the same one he got when a story shifted from interesting to dangerous. So you're saying she wasn't random? Zoya shot him a don't get too excited look. I'm saying I shouldn't be showing you this. And if any of my bosses ask, you hacked my tablet and I tossed you. Damn, you flirt aggressively, Ion joked, though his voice was low. Her glare said she wasn't amused, but her smirk said otherwise. She sighed. Look, Ion, you want answers? Fine. But don't go poking these people without backup. You're not built for the kind of trouble they attract. He didn't answer. He already knew he was going to ignore her warning. Hours later, out on the street, he replayed Layla's call list in his mind. Names. Patterns. Timelines. Something big was underneath all this, and every instinct told him Layla's last breath hadn't been random, it was intentional. As he crossed a quiet intersection, he caught movement behind him in a store window reflection. A figure. Same shape. Same hoodie. Same shadow from the liquor store footage. This time, the stalker didn't bother hiding. They were closing in. The figure didn't flinch when Ayan spun around. He just stood there on the curb, hoodie down, hands raised like he was surrendering to a crime he hadn't committed. Traffic whooshed by, horns blaring, but the dude didn't even blink. "My name's Rayhan," he said, voice low but steady. "Yeah. The same one," she whispered. Ayan's heart plummeted. This was him. The guy whose name had haunted him for days. The same silhouette he'd seen ducking behind corners, vanishing into crowds, tailing him like some ghost with a schedule. "So what?" Ayan snapped. "You stalking me to finish whatever you started at Liberty Fort?" Rayhan's jaw clenched. "Man, if I wanted you gone, you wouldn't be standing here arguing with me on a damn sidewalk." That shut Ayan up. A little. Rayhan stepped closer, slower than slow, like he didn't want Ayan bolting. "Listen, bro. I'm being framed. Set up. Played like a damn fiddle. You think I'd blow up a landmark and then walk around town like an idiot waiting to get caught?" Ayan didn't answer. His brain was juggling fear, anger, curiosity, and the stupid part of him that loved a good story. Rayhan glanced around. "Not here. Cameras everywhere. You wanna hear the truth? Walk with me." Against every smart instinct he had, Ayan followed. They ducked into an alley behind a closed diner. Neon flickered overhead like a dying heartbeat. Rayhan leaned against the wall. The blast wasn't random. It wasn't terror crap. It was an inside job, man. Someone high up needed it to look like chaos from the outside. And I, lucky me, was the perfect idiot to pin it on. Ayan felt his pulse spike. "Why you?" Rayhan laughed, bitter and sharp. "Because I used to work with some people who don't like questions. People who make folks disappear if they even sneeze suspiciously." Ayan stepped back. "And Layla? Your connection to her?" Rayhan's face twisted with pain. "She wasn't supposed to die. She tried to expose what was coming. When she realized they were after me too, she tried to warn you." A rustling noise snapped both their heads toward the alley's entrance. Zoya stood there, badge out, fury blazing. "Ayan," she said through clenched teeth, "step away from him. Now." Rayhan lifted his hands again. "See? This is exactly what I warned you about." Zoya kept her gun up. "Ayan, he's baiting you into something you won't survive." Ayan stood frozen, the world squeezing in. Ayan didn't sleep that night either. Zoya had dragged Rayhan into custody, and the whole alley scene replayed in his brain like a glitchy TikTok loop. Her voice, her anger, Rayhan's warning, it all knotted into one giant mess he couldn't untangle. But just before dawn, his phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. A text popped up. "If you want the truth, meet me. Same alley. 20 minutes. Ayan cursed. "Bro, this is how people end up in documentaries." Still, he grabbed his jacket and went. When he reached the alley, Rayhan was already there, hoodie up, but wrists free, no handcuffs, no cops. "How the hell are you out?" Ayan whispered. Rayhan smirked. "Your girl's team can't hold someone they can't prove crap on. Bureaucracy got me a free pass." Ayan hated the way Rayhan said your girl, but he let it slide. Rayhan shoved a folder into his hands. "These are copies. Took me years to gather. Internal memos, off-the-record transfers, hush-hush payments. All connected to the agency investigating the blast." Ayan flipped through them. Names. Dates. Codes. Redacted lines that screamed corruption. His stomach dropped. "Dude, this is insane." Rayhan looked him dead in the eye. They're using the blast to clean house, push agendas, and pin the whole thing on outsiders. Layla found out. That's why she died. Ayan swallowed hard. And you want me to do what? Publish this? Blow the lid. Not yet, Rayhan said. First, you gotta figure out who inside is pulling the strings. Someone close. Someone you trust more than you should. That last line burned. Later that day, Ayan stormed into the precinct, folder stuffed under his hoodie. He found Zoya alone in an empty briefing room, eyes locked on a board filled with timelines and mugshots. He threw the folder onto the table. Explain this. Right now. Zoya froze. Her shoulders sagged like someone had just cut her strings. You weren't supposed to see that. So it's real. She rubbed her forehead, voice cracking for the first time. Ayan, you don't get it. I've been trying to expose this for months. But the people involved. They're above my pay grade. Above everyone's pay grade. If I open my mouth, I'm done. My family's done. You could have told me. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked it back. And put you on their radar? Hell no. Ayan stepped closer. Too close. Something electric hung between them. Zoya whispered, I'm scared, Ayan. Before he could speak, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Someone was coming for them. The crash in the hallway wasn't an attack, just a metal cart tipping over, but it was enough to send Ayan and Zoya jolting apart like guilty teenagers. The tension lingered though, buzzing between them like faulty wiring. Ayan grabbed the folder and slipped out before anyone noticed he'd been inside. He needed air. Space. Answers that didn't twist in circles. He ended up in his apartment, lights off, blinds cracked, documents spread across the floor like a conspiracy-themed art project. He skimmed page after page, frustration brewing. Everything pointed somewhere, but nowhere clear. Then he spotted it. A name on one of Layla's encrypted messages. A name he'd ignored earlier. Layla Ortiz Mirza. His heart stopped. Mirza. Rayhan's last name. No freaking way, Ayan whispered, running a shaky hand through his hair. He grabbed his phone and called Rayhan. Hey. We need to talk. Now. They met in a parking garage. Classic shady meeting vibes. Rayhan leaned against a concrete pillar, shadows hugging him like they had a contract. You found it, Rayhan said quietly. Layla was your sister. Ayan's voice cracked halfway through. Rayhan nodded, jaw clenching. She wasn't supposed to be at Liberty Fort. She was supposed to meet someone higher up, someone ready to leak proof of a covert government op that went sideways. Real sideways. What kind of op? Rayhan hesitated. Something involving surveillance tech, stuff that could wreck careers if it got out. They ran it without authorization. When Layla found out, she tried to expose it. They decided she talked too much. Ayan felt the air leave his lungs. So you think the blast was ordered? Rayhan's eyes burned. Not think. No. And you didn't tell me she was your sister? Rayhan stepped forward. Because you wouldn't have listened. You would have written me off as some emotional wreck trying to blame the system. I needed you to see the corruption first, on your own. Ayan hated how much sense that made. And hated that it meant he'd been played. By Rayhan. By Zoya. Hell, maybe by everyone. The worst part? They weren't lying. Not entirely. Pieces didn't contradict. They overlapped. Ayan stared at the city lights beyond the garage entrance, flickering like warning signs. He'd stumbled into something bigger than a blast, bigger than a cover-up. Something rotten buried deep, so deep it poisoned everyone touching it. When he looked back at Rayhan, the man's voice dropped to a whisper. Ready for the real truth, Ayan? The real truth. The part nobody survived knowing. The drive back from the parking garage felt like drifting through a fogged-out dream. Rayhan's words, ready for the real truth, kept echoing in Ayan's skull, clashing with Layla's dying whisper, his brother's laugh, the blast, everything. By the time he reached his apartment, He was shaking so hard he nearly dropped his keys. Sleep didn't come. Not even close. Instead, the nightmares hit him like a freight train. Samir screaming. Fire swallowing the street. Layla's eyes going empty. Rayhan's voice twisting into something darker, accusing him. The sound of explosions layered over each other until they became one deafening roar that jerked him awake, drenched in sweat. "Get it together, man," he muttered, gripping the sink, staring at his reflection like it owed him answers. "You're losing it." He wasn't sure when he'd walked outside, but suddenly he was at the precinct, hood up, hands stuffed in his pockets like he was trying to hold himself together. Zoya spotted him the second he entered the hallway. "Ayan," she said, voice softer than usual. "You look bad. Like real bad." "Yeah, thanks," he snapped, but there was no heat behind it. Just exhaustion. "I can't do this. This whole case, this truth or whatever, it's ripping my head apart." Zoya stepped closer, studying him with eyes that weren't sharp for once. "What did Rayhan tell you?" "Enough to make me question everything," Ayan said. "Enough to make me think we're fighting a monster we can't even see." For a second, Zoya hesitated, then something inside her cracked. "My dad," she whispered. Ayan froze. "What about him?" Her voice shook. Before he retired, he worked inside the same agency handling this blast. He used to talk about projects, stuff too classified to name. Stuff that made him drink himself sick at night. He warned me once that one day I'd see things I wasn't supposed to. "And Ayan, some of the signatures on those documents you showed me? They look like his." Ayan stared at her, the world tilting. "Zoya, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want it to be true," she whispered. "And because if he is involved, I'm next on their chopping block." Without thinking, Ayan reached for her hand. She didn't pull back. Two broken people clinging to the only person who understood the nightmare. Zoya exhaled shakily. "Ayan, there's more you need to know." But before she could speak, her phone buzzed. A name flashing across the screen that made her face drain of color. The name flashing on Zoya's phone, Director Hale, hit her like a gut punch. She killed the call instantly, grabbed Ayan's wrist, and dragged him into an empty conference room. Her hands trembled, but her voice went steel flat. "He never calls me. Ever. If he's reaching out now, it means he knows we're getting too close." Ayan swallowed hard. "Then we need to finish what we started, fast." For the next hour they worked like two fugitives building a case against the government. Papers sprawled across the table, screens lit with encrypted messages, maps dotted with blast sites, payment logs, burner phone coordinates, all pointing toward one man. Director Jonathan Hale. The guy who had spent years shaping the narrative of national security. The guy who smiled on TV like America's favorite uncle. The guy Zoya once admired. Zoya's voice cracked. "My dad warned me about him. Said Hale was the kind of man who could burn down a city and still sleep with both eyes closed." Ayan nodded grimly. "Looks like he's testing that theory." Just then, Ayan's phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. "If you want answers, come to Pier 47. Alone. Rayhan." Of course it was Rayhan. Against Zoya's protests, Ayan insisted on going, but she followed anyway, hiding in the shadows like backup with trust issues. Pier 47 was empty, waves slapping the docks like impatient hands. Rayhan paced near a rusted cargo container, hoodie down, eyes wild with fear and fury. "He's here," Rayhan hissed the moment Ayan approached. "Hale. He's meeting his fixer. I'm taking him down tonight." Before Ayan could respond, footsteps echoed across the pier. Director Hale stepped into view, crisp suit, smug expression, like he owned the damn ocean. "Well," Hale drawled, "this is adorable. My two loose ends meeting each other like bandmates." Rayhan stepped forward. "You killed my sister. You used her. You used all of us." Hale smirked. "Please. Layla talked too much." "So did you." A figure emerged behind Rayhan, one he recognized too late. Marcus, his closest friend from the activist network. Marcus muttered, "Sorry man," and pressed a gun to Rayhan's ribs. The betrayal shredded the night. Rayhan lunged. Marcus fired. Chaos erupted. Ayan dove behind a crate. Zoya sprang from hiding, gun drawn, shouting commands drowned out by gunfire. Rayhan hit the ground, blood blooming through his hoodie. Hale tried to run, but Zoya tackled him, slamming him against the container with a rage that wasn't just professional, it was personal. "Ayan," she yelled. "We need to finish this, now." The truth was out. But the night wasn't done taking lives. By sunrise, Pier 47 looked like the aftermath of a nightmare nobody would ever fully believe. Police lights washed everything in red and blue, stretching across the water like bruises. Hale was in custody, Marcus was hauled off in cuffs, and statements were being collected left and right. But none of it felt like victory. Not to Ayan. Not to Zoya. And definitely not to Rayhan. Rayhan sat on the back bumper of an ambulance, hoodie soaked in blood, some his, most not. A blanket draped over his shoulders like a half-hearted apology from the universe. Ayan approached slowly, unsure whether to sit beside him or give him space. Rayhan didn't look up. "They cleared my name," he muttered. "Congrats to me, right?" Ayan swallowed. "Rayhan, I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't bring Layla back," Rayhan said, voice cracking. "She died trying to do the right thing. And I dragged her deeper into hell. That's on me, man. All of it." Ayan sat next to him anyway. "No. Hale made those choices. Marcus made those choices. Layla made hers. You can't carry everyone's sins." Rayhan finally met his eyes, shattered but steady. "You're gonna write all this, aren't you?" Ayan nodded. "If I don't, they bury it. And then another Layla dies." Rayhan let out a humorless laugh. "You know publishing that story paints a fat target on your back, right?" Ayan shrugged. "Yeah. But truth doesn't survive if no one risks bleeding for it." Across the dock, Zoya stood alone, staring at the horizon like she was trying to outrun the sun. Ayan walked over. She didn't turn, but she knew it was him. "My dad signed off on those transfers," she whispered. "Not the blast, but the money trails. He wasn't innocent, Ayan. Just trapped." "You did what you had to," Ayan said gently. She wiped a tear with the back of her hand. "I turned against my own blood. And even if he deserved it, it still feels like I stabbed my childhood." Ayan stepped beside her. Not touching, just close enough to share the same broken air. "Truth hurts everyone it touches. You told me that once." Zoya exhaled shakily. "So what now?" Ayan looked toward the same city that had taken his brother, taken Layla, taken peace from all of them. "Now," he said softly, "we deal with the reality we fought so hard to uncover." Behind them, the sun rose slow and heavy, bright enough to reveal everything, and too late to save what was already lost.